Once you become aware of what's going on in this world, once you become disillusioned with capitalism, with racism, all the structures and inequalities that exist in this world that make it the way it is, it can be very difficult to still operate in a world where a lot of the world is still stuck in that mindset. And the society that we live in is essentially still unconscious. That's why I say we're living in a matrix. A lot of people have not broken free and realized that a lot of what we've attached ourselves to in terms of what's important is not really real. And it can be very isolating to realize that. It can be honestly quite depressing. I'm still kind of on this journey in figuring out how to operate in this world, again, as a conscious being when we just live in an unconscious society. But I do want to share with you guys some things that I feel like I've been learning along the way, how to basically stay sane and how to healthily navigate being in society when you, again, are starting to become aware of what's going on in it. So the first thing that I think is really important, and I talk about this a lot in my videos, is to recognize that, again, it is a game. Once you become aware of the fact that a lot of these things that we've been convinced are important and serious, like how much money you're making and what job you're working, all these things, once you become aware of the fact that a lot of this is not real, it becomes easier for the matrix that we live in to feel a little bit more light and fun. You can kind of start to enjoy it, because at the end of the day, once you mentally escape the matrix, unless you're super rich and you are just completely disassociated from the rest of the world, you're probably not going to be able to physically separate yourself from this society. And so I think it's really important to recognize that although you're still physically in it, you still have the power to emotionally, mentally, energetically separate yourself from that way of thinking and that way of being. Just because people around you in the society is living in constant fear does not mean that you have to do that as well. In fact, I think it's really important, once you become more conscious and aware of what's going on, and once you start identifying yourself with a more loving frequency, to maintain your loving frequency in order to raise the frequency of those around you. I think there's a collective awakening happening right now, especially with the pandemic. More people are starting to become aware of what's going on. So by you holding on to your frequency, by you operating from a place of love in all that you're doing, again, no matter what your physical world looks like, even if you're still working at a job every single day that you hate, even if you're surrounded by people who are still really caught up in an egoic way of thinking, by maintaining a frequency of love, you can start to shift the environment and the energy around you. And that kind of leads me into my next point, which is having compassion for those people. Having compassion for people who are not conscious, which I'm kind of going to get into that whole terminology in a second. Having compassion for people who are still bought into this notion of the seriousness of the matrix, I think is really key in changing the nature of the society. And in all honesty, this is something that I've really struggled with for a long time, because for me, once I started awakening and realizing what is going on, I started to get really frustrated with the people around me, because I'm like, how do you not see this? Like, you don't get it, right? You're not awake. You're just kind of still operating as a robot. But I really had to take a step back and realize that at the end of the day, first of all, you being a spiritual being does not make you better than other people. You becoming more aware of what's going on in this world does not mean that you should separate yourself from those who are not. I think it's really, really important to have compassion, have empathy for people who are not aware of the same truths that you are, and have an understanding of why people are so caught up in this simulation, because at one point you were as well. And taking it even a step further, it's really important to remember that at the end of the day, the people at the top, the people who are like controlling this simulation, the reason why we are in this position today, these people are also acting out of fear for a reason as well. And so while it's really, really easy to be angry at the world and be angry at every rich white person in the deep state who is running this, I think in order for this world to truly heal, and in order for us to move on past this fear-based way of living that we're all kind of stuck in, we have to forgive other people, and we have to understand that the reason why we're all in this matrix, the reason why there is so much suffering and wealth inequality in this world, is because there are a few people at the top who are also living in fear. People who are running these billion-dollar corporations are living in stress and fear on a day-to-day basis. They are not happy either. Like, yes, they have a lot of stuff. Yes, they have a lot of material worth, but they're not happy. And having compassion, having forgiveness in your heart for even those people I think is really going to be what helps the world heal. And it's also going to be what helps you heal as well. Because instead of waking up every single day being angry at this world that we live in, which is really easy to do once you start becoming aware of the world that we live in, it's not going to help you heal. It's not going to help you operate from a place of love. And in fact, it's probably going to be detrimental to your own spiritual growth. And I really encourage you to also recognize like what parts of you resonate with those people who are caught up in the matrix. As spiritual beings, we are naturally compassionate. So a lot of the way that we've kind of been trained to think is conditioning, right? It's not natural to who we are. And I think the more you can kind of stop to do that and really identify what parts of you still resonate with the matrix and the matrix mentality, the more you can kind of start to heal from it and have compassion for not only yourself, but also others. The next thing I want to talk about is integration. Once you become awakened and you kind of start accessing this 5D information that you never were once accessing, it's really important to come back down to the 3D to see how you can take these learnings, these lessons, these codes that you're receiving and implement them into everyday life for your own spiritual growth, but also for the spiritual growth and collective awakening of others. Again, it's very, very easy to alienate yourself and to feel very isolated when you're going through a spiritual awakening. But if you really want to start to see this world change, it's really important to ask yourself what you feel like your role is in that change. Maybe your role right now is to only focus on you and your journey, and that's totally okay. But maybe once you kind of start going through your own journey and start really having learnings and lessons that you really want to share to others, maybe your role is in educating other people. Maybe your role is in taking real action and making change. I think by finding your mission, by working on figuring out what your mission is, it can really help you start to kind of integrate into the society and again, recognize what your role is, what your purpose is, and how you can actually feel good and fulfilled by helping others. And I think it'll really help you feel a lot less isolated from the rest of the world, but it will also just make you more excited to wake up every single day. So I think integration is so key in helping you again kind of operate in this world without feeling like you're going crazy. The next thing I want to talk about, and this kind of falls under the category of integration, is being a conscious consumer. Whether that be the media and content that we're watching, or the food that we're eating, or even what we're consuming, like what we're actually spending our money on and buying materially, I think it's really important to really be aware of what energy fields you're kind of playing around with. When you're constantly consuming media that is fear-based and fear-mongering, that has an effect on you. Another thing again is watching again what you're consuming in terms of what you're buying. Like for example, what corporations are you supporting and buying from? This is something that I'm definitely working on because I do know I have a huge problem of kind of just picking whatever company or store is the most convenient to shop from. But I think it's really important, especially when it comes to like fashion and consuming things that you don't really need. I think it's really important to first of all ask yourself like what purpose you have in buying what you're buying, like maybe only buying what you truly actually need. And then another thing to think about is also like how can you shop more sustainably? Can you start shopping from thrift stores and consignment stores instead of from fast fashion stores? And even if you enjoy shopping online more, there are different options for, you know, shopping online secondhand. There's stores like thredUP, who is actually the sponsor of today's video. So shout out to them. They are an online consignment and thrift store where you can shop a huge variety of different styles and brands. I just think it's a really convenient option if you want to shop secondhand and again just be a little bit more of a conscious consumer. I ordered a bunch of stuff from them a few weeks ago and I got so many cute styles. I got a lot of Y2K brands. I really like that again you can search the brands that you want on the website. So if you're looking for specific brands, if you're like really into Y2K stuff like me, then you can find it a lot easier than you would a typical like in-person consignment store or thrift store or whatever. So I found brands like Harley Davidson, I got BB, I got this really cute brand called Luna Chicks. I got a few things from them as well. And they're all pretty affordable as well. If you're shopping like at a typical vintage store here in Austin, I know these kind of brands, they usually will price up like crazy. Like they will sell you them for like $100 for a dress, which is insane. So it's just kind of nice to see like when you're shopping on the website, like what the retail price is versus what the thredUP price is, because you're seeing that you are actually saving money. So I really enjoyed shopping from them. I'm definitely going to keep doing it in the future because again, I'm really trying to limit how much fast fashion I'm buying and how many fast fashion brands I'm working with. I just think secondhand is a lot more of a conscious and just sustainable option. So I will leave a link to them down below. You guys can use my code Lynette to get 30% off of your first purchase if you guys want to go check them out. You also get free shipping with that code, which is really nice. So thank you again to thredUP for sponsoring today's video. Other thing I really want to touch on is also, again, the food that you put in your body. I talk about this all the time. The food that you put in your body is going to affect your energy field. I think it's really important to really pay attention attention to. Are you constantly eating processed foods? Are you constantly supporting food companies that are producing food that is like poison to us? Like, I think it's really important to be aware of that. Obviously, if you do not have the funds to do that, that's a totally different story. But I think if you can afford to, I think it's really important to just be aware of and just kind of put like a second thought into what kind of food you're eating as well. Overall, again, just being a conscious consumer just means really taking a step back and thinking about what you're consuming, what the purpose of what you're putting into your body, what you're putting into your brain, what you're wearing, what you're putting your money into. All of that, again, is energy, and what you support energetically is also going to affect the collective consciousness as well, which again, it just sounds so cringy because I keep saying it, but like, it's true. And then my last piece of advice is to really just take a step back when you need to. Again, a lot of this spiritual work can be very, very heavy. And again, realizing the world that we live in is not necessarily usually in support of that spiritual work can be very, very difficult and can be very, very challenging emotionally, mentally, even physically. So I really encourage you to remember that there is nothing more productive than taking care of yourself. I talked about earlier how important it is to integrate a lot of your learnings into the real world and to not alienate yourself from other people. But I will say, I think it is necessary at times to spend some time alone and separate yourself from the everyday reality and heaviness of the world if it is becoming too much for you. And again, if you have the luxury to be able to afford that. If you don't have the physical ability or the money to be able to go and take a whole trip across the world in Bali and really separate yourself from the rest of the world, you can still take time for yourself in your everyday life. Maybe that means waking up a little bit earlier so that you can have time to meditate and pray and do the things that kind of feed your soul before you have to get into your work day. Maybe that just means taking a walk after work every single day and going out in nature and spending time grounding yourself and coming back to, again, who you are. No matter what that looks like for you, just taking time and being intentional about taking a step back when you do need to and when you feel called, I think is so, so important to, again, just maintaining not only sanity, but just like, again, a loving frequency throughout this spiritual journey. Again, remember that you are a spiritual being having a human experience. So whenever you need time to come back to your truth, yourself, in whatever way that looks like, take that time. Do not feel guilty about it. And again, remember that your purpose right now may just be to take care of you. And eventually that can spread out into taking care of other people too and helping other people get to a place where they are able to do that as well. But if right now you just need to focus on yourself, that is totally, totally okay. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys have anything that you guys want to add. If there's anything that you guys disagree with, definitely let me know as well. I love constructive conversations where I'm learning from you guys as well. And I just really, really appreciate every single one of you being here, showing up for yourselves, showing up for this journey, and showing up for, again, this collective awakening that we are all having, because it is beautiful that this is happening right now. It's like actually a miracle. And it's just kind of crazy, again, when you take a step back and really look at the fact that we live in this world that is so run by fear, the fact that so many of us are coming back to this truth of love, coming back to this truth of who we are. It's kind of amazing when you really just stop and think about it. So I really encourage you to take some time today and really just kind of bask in this and enjoy this moment. And again, remember, you guys can use my code Lynette to get 30% off of your thredUP purchase if you guys want to go do that as well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for being here and showing up and just, again, showing up for yourselves. And I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.